Hi all, welcome back to Learner Force. In today's video, I'm gonna share my real interview experience with TCS, the questions they have asked, and how you can prepare for the similar interview. So that was a 40 to 45 minutes technical round. I attended this interview 4 days back. This as for the proof, I will attend the invite mail screenshot here. So this video is about the experience of Salesforce Developer interview. The main purpose of this video is to share the real questions and asked in the interview. So firstly, the interview was started by asking the questions. Tell me about yourself. In the self introductions, you better mention about the skills you are good at. Like after your introduction, you can just mention what are the projects you have worked, and then while mentioning about the project, just mention what are the things you particularly worked, and also and highlight the skills that you are good at, so that the interview will started asking questions on the skills that you mentioned. So in my case also that happened. Like while giving the introduction itself, I have mentioned in one of my major projects I have worked on LWCs and then Apexes. Those things I have mentioned. Since I mentioned that, they started asking questions about LWCs and Apex. So the first questions they have asked me is to write the code, LWC code, any code that I have worked in my projects. So for these questions, I write the code to fetch the data from Apex in the LWC. I use the while method, and while writing this, also focus on the practical implementation, not just the theory. While writing the code itself, you just have to mention how to do it, and even writing each line, it's better to explain what's the purpose of that line and why it's really needed, and is there any other alternative also. If you know the alternative, that also you can mention, and always explain with the use cases. And once I'm done with that code, they told me to write one more LWC code. Before asking that, they asked me the question like how to pass the values between the parent to child and child to parent in LWC. As you all know, like parent to child, we can pass it with at API, and then child to parent custom event that I mentioned. And while explaining itself, you better to give, like if they haven't told you to write the code, you just better to give like how you can mention that at API property in the while passing between parent to child, and how you do it in custom event while passing between child to parent. And then once they're done with that, they told me to write the LWC code for the same. Like they gave one scenario, like the value should be passed from parent to child, and the value should be entered on the parent component. Like for example, we have to write two LWC. One is the parent and one is the child, and in the parent LWC there should be option to input the values in HTML, and once the user get that value, it should pass from parent to child. And while writing itself, you have to mention like each line you have to mention why you are writing this and what's the purpose of that line. And here in that, you can also show them that data binding, how the data binding works in practical. And once they're done with that, these are the LWC questions they have asked me. And once they're done that, they asked me about the governor limit and what's the governor limit, and why it's there in Salesforce. They asked that question, and then while explaining this, you have to mention like what along with what it is, and you also mention the limits of the for the queries, TMLs, heap size, that you can mention. Once I answered that, they asked me like what's the governor limit for particularly like CPU heap size, that they only asked, and I gave the answer for that. And then Also, while answering these questions, like what's the best practice you can do for the governor limit, like for example bulkification, avoid SOQLs inside the loop, that you can mention it. And then they asked me about do I know the Apex classes and triggers. So I mentioned and they to ask me what are the things I have worked on Apex. So you can mention what are the things you have worked on Apex, like if you worked on batch class, schedule jobs, like those things you can mention. And then they told me to write a trigger. For that they gave me one questions like once the opportunity owner is deleted, the owner of the opportunity to be updated to the deleted manager. For that you have to write a trigger on user delete. That I have write. And then while writing also you better mention, we should not, like every line we should not, what are the things we have to add and what are the things we have to avoid. So basically these are my experience with TCS as a Salesforce developer. And along with that I also attended few other interviews. Those videos I will make it in future. And if I have to compare this with other companies interviews, here I what I exactly experienced is the interview was not fully focused on, like while writing the codes and all, he was not fully focused on the syntax and all. They just wanted to explain the logic. And then and also every time when you are preparing for the coding interviews in Salesforce, you don't fully have to be aware of the syntax. You just know the basics of the syntax, but you should be good at logics. And then and if I have to compare with other companies, here I felt like this was not like the interviewer itself, while asking questions itself, I felt the interviewer itself is not so good at LWC. So it helped me while writing the code. And then along with that they have asked me how many certificates I have, and any other things other than these things. Do I worked on any particular clouds? Since I worked on Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, I mentioned that, and also Experience Cloud that I mentioned. This is my experience related to Salesforce developer interview with TCS. Thank you. Please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon.